What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant. Hope everybody's been doing good. We are now in the month of August. We are almost there at the end of the year, guys, and it's a little scary, but at the same time, it's fine. We were talking about a lot of shows that started in June, and I felt like that was a pretty stacked month for everything. And one of them is also come to an end, and that is the second season of one of the most important and popular shows that HBO has ever created, which is House of the Dragon Season 2. So with the show finally finishing up the second season, there's still 2 more seasons to come, everyone. So it's not over yet. We're just gonna do our rantings first, and then we will get into some spoilers after that, just because it's just a way for all of us to kind of talk about, mostly me and Byrne. If we could have you guys on like a radio show, that'd be very interesting, but also I don't know how I would react to that. But yeah, like I said, let's just, so we're basically just going to talk about that, and we'll get into the spoilers. So anyways, so this season took place pretty much a little bit after the ending of season 1, in which all the line has been drawn between 2 sides of the Targaryen Civil War, which is Team Green and Team Black, essentially. Team Green being the family in control of the 7 Kingdoms, ran by the Alicent Hightower and her sons Aegon, Aemond, and all that family. And then Team Black is Princess Rhaenyra, Prince Daemon, and her side of the family. And essentially, she was deemed the rightful heir last season. And essentially, this is all just building up to that. So last season, when it first came out, I know we did a mini episode reviews on that one. It was a solid season. I definitely felt like it was a little too slow for being the show about the Targaryen era, essentially. Given this isn't Aegon the Conqueror's time, this is about 100 years or so after that, and 300 years before the original Game of Thrones series, or 150 years, one of those two. But this one I felt like definitely improved on it to a certain extent. Just felt like it was more action, definitely more dragons. I felt like things were moving at a little bit faster pace, but at the same time, there's still so much I feel like the show could have done in this season to really just capitalize on that, the intensity factor, and just all the stuff we didn't really get in the original Game of Thrones series. So with that being said, I'm going to give this season a 3 out of 5. It's still one of the best shows of the year, in my opinion, but I feel like it just could have been better still, and it just felt like a kind of a setup for the next season, or the next 2 seasons, really. Byrne, what did you think about this season, and what is your ranting?
It's so interesting to hear your thoughts, because we haven't really talked about it too much outside of just planning on the structure of the episode. But yeah, I am simultaneously in agreement with you and in disagreement. It's funny how we both come to the same conclusions. I also think this is as a season, the 3 out of 5, but for different reasons.
Byrne, I feel like there's a time like when do we we agree on most stuff, but then when we disagree on stuff, it's like it happens a lot, but at the same time when it happens, it's like, how dare you, sir? But go ahead, keep going.
But no, that's good. I guess we cover all the perspectives on the series. But yeah, 3 out of 5 overall for me. In opposition to how you feel on this season, I did feel it was if you had asked me what I felt like 4 episodes into this season, I would have told you that I think by far this is much better than the first season. But as we got into the last few episodes of this season, it did take a pretty big step back for me. And I think overall, I enjoyed the first season more, narrative-wise, plot-wise, as opposed to this season, where I do think the highs of this season are higher than the first season in terms of the spectacle, in terms of the things they do with the dragons and the action and stuff, definitely. But I just felt like the tension and the political machinations, a lot of the things that I really like Game of Thrones for, all this maneuvering of alliances and friendships and allies becoming enemies. I felt like the first season nailed that better, and the first half of the season really nailed that. I did feel, but then once we get into the back half, a lot of that stuff was lacking for me. Whereas the dragon stuff was there in spades, I think, and that was awesome. It felt like it was kind of like a lot of other shows. It seems this year, a lot of the plates were just spinning, and we were kind of dragging our heels. So the way I felt about the first season where it was like it felt like we kind of got 2 seasons worth of content in that one. The 5 episode split. The time jump that we got. It felt like it could have been a season each. This one felt like there could have been like a little bit more to it. We only got 8 episodes this season, and it definitely felt that way. Whereas I didn't hate the finale on its own, on its in isolation. I do think it's a really good episode, but it felt like an episode 8 out of 10. It didn't feel like it wrapped up a lot of the storylines in a satisfying manner to get us into next season in an interesting way. I do feel like where we left off at the end of the first season is the same place where we leave off here, where they're these two sides are gearing up for battle. we're just gearing up now. It's gonna happen at any moment. It's gonna happen, guys. These dragons are gonna fight. They're gonna dance. I swear, not now, but later.
Again, it's just the complete opposite. You love the first half, and not to say it was bad. I just was like, me personally, like, it's a little slow. Let's get things moving. So after a certain episode, that's what I was like, okay, now the wheels are now we're cooking. So it's just funny how, I mean, again, that's just our taste occasionally. Like I said, while we agree on most stuff, there's always those things that in terms of style or storytelling, we'll have our moments of disagreement. So I totally respect that. Mm-hmm. But
no, I mean, if it pleased everyone, then it would kind of be a little bit milquetoast.
No, I think again, your criticisms are definitely valid there, Burn. I know I've seen a lot of stuff about the last episode and people wanting more, but let's get into it, shall we? So it's a 3 out of 5 for both me and Burn. So essentially, again, great show. HBO doesn't fail on the effects and basically the quality that we get with the show and the
absolutely effects. Premium TV.
Yeah, it just, for the standard of what the show is, basically the time period that the show takes place in, it could have been better. It's just basically a giant filler. So we'll get into that now. So for those of you who haven't happened to finish the show, sorry if we kind of ruined it with the whole the whole filler feeling. But once you catch up, maybe you'll agree with us. Please come on back in the comments and let us know what you thought. But let's get started with the spoilers, shall we, and just what we thought. And I say, why not start with the positives as always? Let's start on a good note on what we did not like and not completely just bash the show. But for me personally, there's not a whole lot of cons. It's just they're kind of just grown into big, like, nitpicky but also giant stuff. Anyways, I apologize. So I will say, first off, this show has one of the best, I think, pieces, like, just performances around in television. I think the strongest so far out of all the shows we've watched so far, in my opinion, specifically with Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra Targaryen, Olivia Cook as Alicent Hightower, Ewan Mitchell as Aemon Targaryen, and then my other favorite was Matt Smith, Daemon, even though 3 out of those 4 characters are very frustrating to watch here and there. Again, that's just the pride of their acting. Like, Rhaenyra, while she was very, she was kind of pulled in all directions. Like, she's definitely feeling the effects of being like, not only an heir to the throne, but also, hate to say it, a woman essentially in a wartime situation. Where she wants to fight, but then people tell her no, but she wants to do diplomacy, but people say no, we gotta fight, we gotta do this. And it's like, I mean, while it was like, come on, you're the queen, you can you're the princess, you can kind of say what you should do without what these people said. I kind of worked for Daenerys in the next few hundred years, but that's the future. So I really like that. And Olivia Cook, while I can't stand her character, Alicent Hightower, the biggest hypocrite in TV, she does such a great job, especially the moments where Alicent just feels everything closing around her and her, like, essentially the power that she was grown up to try and keep for herself and her family slipping away from her specifically. Fantastic acting. And then Ewan Mitchell as Aemond. Such a great villain. Like, I hate that he's on the greens, but man, such a great villain, just so cold and calculating, yet he also yearns for love and affection, as in that, I think, episode 2 or 3, where you see him with the prostitute and stuff, and how he's not like his mother or his brother or basically half the people boning in the show. It's not aggressive or lustful. It's like he wants to feel like he's worth something, but it sucks because it turned him into this villain. Um, and then Matt Smith as Damon, again, such a d-bag, but God love him. He does such a great job. He's got the coolest armor in the entire show, and it's a struggle of being the younger brother that wasn't chosen, and then kind of realizing why he wasn't chosen at the very end. So that was one of my reasons why I liked it, and I'll get into my other stuff. But Bern, what was one of the first things that you really liked about this season?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I think the performances all around were like pretty great. You know, and like you mentioned, Emma Darcy. I thought they killed it with the what Rhaenyra had to work with. Although I didn't love a lot of Rhaenyra's story. You know, I felt like the character was kind of, like I mentioned to you, a little bit more reactive than proactive when it comes to ruling, and it works and it doesn't work in a sense because yeah, you know, she is someone who is kind of like thrust into this role and isn't really prepared for it outside of just, you know, being named the heir, you know, just by being the, you know, blood. It's like, okay, you're given this role, but is she fit for it, you know? So it was interesting to sort of dissect that, where it's like, okay, is she really a good leader at the end of the day? You know, yeah, this is her role to rule the Seven Kingdoms by blood right, but is she the right person? You know, does she have the right ideas, the right policies? You know, does she have a vision for what she wants to do when she rules? And I like that got a little bit put into question. Where I did feel it was a little bit frustrating was where, you know, like she's kind of like, you know, taking the counsel of all these people and just sort of reacting to things around her out other than, you know, moving chess pieces into place, and, you know, her airing her frustration of, you know, her wanting to go out there and do something and everyone telling her not to. That beat just was sort of repeated a little bit too much for me, in my opinion. But other than that, I thought, you know, the performance was great, and other than that, it was pretty interesting. I did think Allison was. It was definitely one of those, you know, you reap what you sow. You know, we got to see this whole thing just blow up in her face, and Olivia Cook really just acted that out so well. You know, just seeing the world crumble around her and it being of her own making was really good narrative irony, and I did like seeing that with the character, and again, I thought she performed that really well. And yeah, like you mentioned with Eamon's character, that you know, that kid who's bullied throughout all of his younger life, and just and having that resentment, and then being put into a position where he could act on those resentments and then that anger, and we got to see how destructive he is at the expense of, you know, the even people that he cares about. So yeah, it was he was a highlight for me for sure this season. And I know you didn't mention it, but Kristen Cole, I did really like what they did with that character. Even though I hate the guy, you know, he still is a little jealous beehotch at the end of the day. But where we get to see, you know, throughout the course of the season, where that, you know, that veneer of, you know, that pure knight that, you know, we got to see deconstructed in the first season also gets, you know, continuously deconstructed here, where, you know, where he's making bad choices at the behest of, you know, the people that he's serving. But then once we get to the middle point of the season, his sort of ideals kind of shift once he sees, you know, the dragons come into play, and how that makes him feel, like becoming nihilistic and saying that, you know, that his role in this greater war doesn't really matter at the end of the day, and him having to come to terms with that existential dread of just pure annihilation that he can't really control was really interesting to see, and I did really enjoy that.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. Like that and that kind of leads into one of my other highlights, is that what I really liked about this season is that a lot of these characters got humbled by their own ambitions. Like, you know, you said one of them, Kristen Cole, at that battle with, you know, Vagar, and Aemond, Aegon and his dragon Sunfire, and Rhaenys with Melis, you know, how she was dominating because she's been through combat to a certain extent. So is her dragon, and, you know, Aegon and Aemond not so much, but Aemon was just riding Vhagar. She's been around for like definitely a couple hundred years. Like she's almost as old as Balerion essentially. And I love that aftermath of it after Vhagar just crashed, ran over, burned everybody, and when he that part where he goes to, kind of say, hey, let's go find the king because Aegon fell. The body is just complete ash and falls. I thought that was one of the coolest moments and really a perfect example of like you've essentially given power to these people because out of spite, and now it's like you basically are in a nuclear war and you're useless. So I love that humbled him, and like I kind of mentioned with Allison and earlier, where she realizes that she's not in control anymore. Her sons are, specifically Aemond is in control, and all these schemes that she's done from last season, again, out of spite. That's what mostly the Greens have done, is just out of greed and spite, just to do what they want to do and get to where they want to get. Mostly created by her father, Otto Hightower, played by Rhys Ifan, who wasn't in it as much this season. I think that's kind of a bummer because he did really great last one. Her realizing that, yeah, exactly, like you said it best, she's reaping what she sows. All the decisions she's made leading up to this, kind of knowing in the back of her mind that her sons were not meant to be rulers. Like all last season, if you really think about it, Aemond and Aegon, they were trained to fight, they were trained to do this and that, but they weren't taught anything on the councils or anything. Rhaenyra was kind of there, but she was still a girl, and I think that was kind of Viserys' fault in doing that to her. So I think that was great, and with your critique of Emma Darcy's acting, well, it's totally justified because it was very reactive. I think she's the only...
not their acting, the way the character was written.
That's what I meant. Yeah,
that the performance is really good, but just the narrative beats just kept feeling like filler. It was just repeated. It felt like.
Yeah, no, that's what I meant. Like her acting, like portrayal of the character, essentially. With Rhaenyra, I think she came off more reactive because her mindset is she knows the Song of the Ice and Fire. She kind of knows the future to come and what the duty of the kingdom relies. And growing up under a peacetime, that's all she's been trying to do. She did everything she could to try and avoid this war, but Alicent and her sons definitely kept escalating it, so she did what she had to do. And she kind of knows, like, if we fight this with dragons, which everybody was pushing them to do, she knows, like, this is the end of what can fight the song, like, what's going to be important to us. So I really like that aspect of it. And I guess the other thing was just Aemond the other thing with Aemond and Aegon both realizing, well, not necessarily realizing, but it's like they basically both messed up in their own ways. Like Aemond realized at the end that, yeah, because you have Vhagar, you're not shit anymore, because now the Team Black has Vermithor with a rider, Silverwing with a rider, like all these dragons that have been around for decades or centuries, they're finally got riders, and now they're a legitimate threat. And then Aegon just being an idiot that he was. Great acting too, but just again the character moments I think I really appreciated this season. So
the character moments definitely this season were a highlight. Like you mentioned. Where I want to elaborate on the Rhaenyra point just to make it a little bit clear. It's just a lot of the things that she did in this season of TV. Again, what felt like it was other people telling her like what to do. Like she didn't come up with the idea to enlist bastards to try to tame these dragons. It was Jace, and then I'm forgetting the girl's name that she comes into a relationship with, but she's the one that gives her the idea to.
Mysaria.
Mysaria. Mysaria is the one, giving her ideas to sort of win over the small folk, and then she's relying on Daemon to sort of, take the castle and to get all those people for her army and stuff. So it is good that she's like, delegating and taking counsel from all these people. But I wish there were some points where we got to see a decision that she comes up with and she makes throughout the season, to really come into fruition in a positive way at all. And I don't think we got that. I think we got a questionable choice to go alone into King's Landing and try to appeal to Alicent, which was, again, this character's reckless. We have seen them in the past, like, make these really rash decisions, so she's not like the best person when it comes to those things. But yeah, I felt like something. I wish there was a decision at some point as a leader, that really like was of her own, and that made it seem like, okay, this person's a really capable person to run the Seven Kingdoms. So yeah, that's just kind of what I was thinking of there. Let's see. In terms of Damon, again, both a positive and a negative. I do love like his character progression, the way he goes in the beginning of the season, still feeling entitled to wanting to rule, that he was kind of passed over in spite, not because of his actual qualifications. Like he still thinks that he is the best person to take the throne and lead this war. To sort of and like to go through sort of a death of his ego through this season was really good. It's just the fact that it took 6 episodes to do it, which is kind of like, again, when I'm talking about repeated beats, how many dream sequences do we need to see him have, and tripping balls at this at this haunted castle. I mean, I did like what we see. The visuals were really cool. I do like the creepy atmosphere, but after 6 hours of that, I'm like, okay, like this really felt like we were just kind of, again, spinning our wheels on this one, where I felt like we could have moved past this in like 2 or 3 episodes instead of 6 of them.
Well, somebody's never been to Lollapalooza, Bernie, so I don't think you know how that feels.
Okay, I mean, Lollapalooza for 6 weeks. I mean, a weekend is cool.
No, imagine.
But I think 6 weeks of it, people would be like, hey, maybe this shouldn't last this long.
Imagine, like, no, just kidding. I definitely agree with you, and I'm glad you brought up Damon, because that was another highlight, was just him realizing at the last episode, the Song of Ice and Fire, like, he learned the hard way about it, and he realized, like, yeah, I was not meant for this, because that's not the responsibility I'm willing to take on. So I did like that part. Essentially, the only other thing that was really the biggest highlight for me was just the character design, with like, I really like all the suits that we see that the greens and the blacks wear, because not only do they look very, like, they look royalty, they also look kind of practical. They kind of reminded me, like, Aemon's and Jaceres, what they wear throughout the show, how it has like that collar that kind of is like slanted. It kind of almost looks like a fencing outfit or like a rider's outfit. But again, they're all dragon riders, so I think there's some sort of functionality there. I could be wrong, but I gotta watch more behind the scenes on it. And last season, my biggest critique was there wasn't enough dragons, dude. There was only, we saw Cyrax, we saw Caraxes, Vhagar, and Melisse, and that was basically it. We didn't really see much else. But this season, the last 2 episodes were just the chef's kiss of finally all the dragons, because we got to see Vermithor live action, the Bronze Fury. That was such a crazy moment. Silverwing, and basically those, and I think it was also great because Hugh Hammer and Ulf, they're essentially they're Rhaenyra's brothers essentially. Well, Hugh is more like an uncle, and then Ulf would be like her half brother. Just being the sons of Jaceres and one of the sisters that may have left the Targaryen family for Essos or something like that. So those were great. Seeing the dragons in action this time was just amazing. Very sad though, because I kept thinking, like, these dragons are they're innocent creatures in all this for a certain point, and they don't deserve any of this, but they're just kind of doing what the writers want to do. So it's just unfortunate. But yeah, like I said, I can't wait to see more this last season, especially the way it's both frustrating and great where the season ends, where we see Helena on Dreamfire riding towards the Riverlands, and then we also see Sheepstealer that Rhaena is trying to claim essentially, and that's a wild dragon. So it's like, god damn it, we gotta wait like another 2 years for this nonsense. But yeah, like I said, definitely I think those are my biggest highlights, with just the character development, the acting, and just the overall design of this show. Anything else, any other positives you want to hash over real quick, Berm?
I mean, yeah, the dragon stuff was great, like you mentioned. I did love how, again, we got more of it this season, but not just that we got to see them like really characterized. I mean, we got a hint of it in the first season, but in this season, now that we got to see them more, I love that they're all different in their designs, not only in their looks but the way they sound too. They and their personalities as well. Like you can see them in like the moments that they're interacting with their riders or the people. Just their personalities come out. I thought that was really cool, how they did that. And then yeah, the battle at Rook's Rest was just everything we've been wanting for for the season and a half up to that point. Of like what does it look like when these dragons really go head to head, and what does it look like for everyone else? So yeah, it is definitely the equivalent of nuclear weapons in this like time and space. I thought that was really cool, and yeah, the whole arms race of this season, it was basically like a Cold War, essentially where everyone's trying to gather alliances, and in this case, with Rhaenyra, gathering more riders to sort of outnumber them and say, hey, we have more destructive power than you do. Bend the knee, otherwise, this is going to get really ugly. And yeah, just again seeing how that affected the people on the ground just showcases, yeah, these things are really absolutely terrifying. And another thing I did really like about this season, and why I did like a lot of the earlier episodes of the season too, was we got to see a lot of the stuff with the small folk, but the people who live within the walls of King's Landing. That's something we didn't get too much of in the original series. All 8 seasons, we really didn't get to experience that sort of life outside of certain characters that participated in activities there once in a while. But to get two characters who are probably going to be major players going forward, and seeing it through the eyes of who we didn't know who was going to be important at that point, I thought was really cool. And I liked how they integrated sort of the feelings of the grounded population as a whole, and how that affects the ruling class. So I thought was interesting, because if we think about it, the characters we're focusing on in these series are the top 1%, the royal families, the top of the top, and we don't really get to focus too much on what are like normal people like us. What would they be thinking in times like these, especially on the brink of a civil war? How would that sort of feeling manifest itself into something positive or negative otherwise? So yeah, I did like seeing that we got more of that and integrated into the story, and it having an actual effect on the plot and on the characters. I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that was actually, I do agree with you. I didn't think about it until you kind of brought it up, but getting more interactions with the small folk and basically just the common people in King's Landing and just the kingdom in general, whether it be the Riverlands or, even that first episode with Cregan Stark and Jaehaerys walking on the wall. I feel like Starks are one of the families that doesn't come off like royalty whatsoever. They come like people elected to power, essentially a little bit more of a democratic feel, even though again they're still royalty. They rule the north, but they have that different sense of lifestyle. And Cregan Stark, that was another character I forgot to highlight. He was just along with the bastards essentially, and also giving shout out to Adam of Hull, who Sea Smoke claimed the White Drogon essentially. Just another great scene. Just a lot of great stuff coming forward with that. So great. I think a lot more additions with characters was really well done, especially that the young Tully, the grandson who inherited the Riverlands. Such a great political character in this whole thing, especially at the end. It was just too much. But yeah, I say burn. Well, why don't we get into the negative stuff or the things that we just kind of nitpick at? What do you say? Cool? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready. I've already kind of gotten a head start on the whole negative aspect of it, but yeah, I'll let you go ahead and air out your grievances first, since people have been hearing me complain a little bit more.
You're good, Burn. Like I said, they're justified critiques. So yeah, basically, I'm just gonna, I've talked enough, so I'm just gonna basically air them out. I felt like the pacing of this show was a big factor. That the first few episodes were a little slow, and then after like the Battle of Rook's Rest episode, really upped the ante a little bit. And then I honestly really liked the last half of the season. I felt like after that battle and everyone kind of realizing the situation, essentially the power change with Aemon being the the Prince Regent, I guess would be the appropriate term, taking over power. Rhaenyra losing Rhaenys and Meleys, that dragon, and just her family scattered and stuff like that. I just felt like, okay, now we're starting to move into the war. So I think that's what being the Dance of Dragons, I think that's what we've all been looking forward to. So I think that plays a big factor into it. And I think the show could have done a little bit better job about speeding that up. But now we got to wait 2 years for that. And my only other thing was, while I did love the last two episodes, especially the finale, it's also a double-edged sword because there's, while I loved Allison basically playing the victim card and saying I don't want this anymore, and Rhaenyra putting in her place, like you put me in this position, I'm standing by it. You need to stand by it, or like take it or go. Essentially, I'm not going to help you, and that's essentially what she was doing. So that was it was annoying, but very well done. And again, we got to wait 2 years for this, and it just sucks. Like, do I want the show to keep like upholding the quality? Absolutely. But at the same time, it's like the Dance of Dragons has been written already. We're not waiting on more books to come out like the last. Like Game of Thrones can make that argument, but they were still kind of churning them out once a year. So while it's not the biggest nitpick, that's kind of a personal gripe I have with it. I could, I may be alone in certain aspects on that, but yeah, I just think that the show was a little slow in the first half, and with all the great things happening, we're gonna have to wait another couple years for stuff to finally come to fruition. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the opposite end of that. I did love the first four episodes more than I did the last half. I thought the first four episodes for me had a lot of more of the things that I did like, with in the first episode, getting again like reacquainted with these characters and kind of setting the stage for, what's to come in this season. Episode 2 sort of had that trading of assassination attempts, one being successful, the other one ending in the two brothers killing each other, which was one of the best fight scenes I think this season, and again ended up in a really heartbreaking fashion. And then we start to get sort of the tensions along other families, with what's going on in the Riverlands and the black. I'm really bad at remembering all these families' names, but yeah, the two families that are always at each other's necks, getting to see that. And
I want to say it was the Blackwells, and then I don't remember that. I just remember the Blackwells. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, Blackwoods something. I don't remember. It's too many families, too many names in the show. And then culminating in the climax. It feels like of the season as a whole. With the Battle of Rook's Rest in episode 4. I thought that momentum going into these first 4 episodes was really great and was everything that I really liked about the peak seasons of Game of Thrones. It's once we got into the back half for me that it felt like things sort of slowed down to a grinding halt. Outside of the search for new riders for these dragons, I felt like everything else was kind of the wheels were spinning, where Damon's going through his hallucinogenic soul searching. Allison's just kind of dealing with the fallout of her decisions, and everyone else is just kind of like, all right, like what are we doing here? We got to get these Riverlands. We got to build up an army. And yeah, I just felt like once we got past that episode 4, I felt like we weren't building up into anything else. And then now by the end of the season, there wasn't really no other climax or other build to that we got to. It was just kind of it's just building up to a third season, it seems like. So that was pretty disappointing. Although I do think episode 7 was pretty excellent. Them claiming the dragons, or the dragons claiming someone in Adam's case, which was great. But yeah, I felt like the last half was sort of the things that I felt like were lacking in the season as a whole, and that was just plot progression. I did love what they did with the characters, of getting them from one point to another in terms of progression. But in terms of we're going with the story, again, it just felt like what I was saying in the beginning, where we ended this season in the same place where we ended last season. It's these two sides gearing up for war at the end of the day. Where I know, I mean, the blacks do have more dragons at the end of this, but essentially we're still in the same position. So that was a little bit frustrating narratively. But like I said, it was the character moments and the character stories that sort of, and of course the good performances all around by everyone that kind of lifted that second half for me, and wanting to see more. But yeah, I just felt like with the momentum that we got from the first 4 episodes, it was kind of lacking for me at the end of it. And again, just the way it ended sort of soured that last half for me in terms of feeling incomplete and just wanting a little bit more out of the season as a whole.
Yeah, it left you wanting more in a negative way, which is not a great feeling because it's like
Yeah. Not like in anticipation for what's to come, but just sort of like unfulfilled, narratively.
yeah. Again, we're opposites of that. I'm disappointed. I want more in anticipation. So yeah, again, it's just funny how that works out. But no, I do agree with you on that to a certain extent. I thought once the action started picking up in the last half, I think it started really getting good. We started to see the downfall of the Greens, but in the end, you're right. We basically still left off at the same point. Like there's no real big turning point as of yet. So, like I said, anything else, Burn, or is that, or did we pretty much hash out all the nitpick stuff?
I didn't mention Corliss. It felt like he was really underutilized.
I knew there was something
this
we were
season.
missing.
It seems like they only had the actor maybe for one day or something, and all they shot was scenes at the dock with him and Alex, the same spot in the same place, having the same conversation again, spinning wheels. Things that I'm kind of like frustrated about this season, where they're just having the exact same conversation, kind of talking around the fact that he was a neglectful and horrible father. Again, I did love the payoff that we got from it. Alan kind of giving him, a piece of his mind and airing out his frustration with him. To Corliss's chagrin, he didn't want to have that conversation once he opened that door. So the payoff to it, again, really good. It's just we had a whole season of them talking to each other in the dock while the ship was being loaded in the background.
When you pointed that out, I didn't think about it, and then I was like, "Oh my God, you're right. That's all he did." It was just I died laughing a little bit when you told me that. But yeah, it's ironic that the bastard children he neglected are now some big key players in this war going forward. So, yeah.
And then to end it off on a positive, Rhaenys, MVP. Her and Melise, great. The actress, I don't have her name up right here, but
Eve Best.
Eve Best, just fantastic all around, and an emotional send off for her in that fourth episode. Went out with a bang, literally. Really cool. I love that character. That dragon was awesome. That fight was awesome. So she got done the most justice, I think, this season. Yeah, she was awesome.
Oh, absolutely. I think she's one of the few characters in all of Game of Thrones so far that's actually had a good, honorable, deserving ending. Like, she went out like a champion. I just felt bad that her dragon had to go down with her. That was the heartbreaking part, because every time the dragon looked back at her, she was like, this is it. Like, I can't do anymore. And it's just like, damn it. But anyways, everyone, I know we've been talking, mostly me, so I know, I'm sure some of you are like, Ryan, stop talking, so I'll stop. We appreciate you guys tuning into this. Again, for those of you who did happen to watch all the season, please let us know what you thought in the comments. We'd love to get your thoughts and keep that going. Even maybe hear what you guys are expecting for the next couple seasons. We'd love to keep that going. While I'm bummed we have to wait for 2 years of House of Dragon, we are getting as shown in that preview the other night, which is the Swordsman series.
Oh, Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sir Duncan the Tall. So we're finally getting that next year. So at least we'll have a little bit more Game of Thrones content to hold us over. But until then, everyone, just stay bodacious and keep on ranting for the both of us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.